I'm curious to know what was the most complex episode in your mind as an editor
Oh my God,
and
the
sound
the
designer.
auto tune one, the episode 4. This is insane.
First I got your voicemail, then I got you. We can meet in person or maybe on Zoom. So tell me what's your genre, tell me what do you do. I'd like to know the things that specifically make you.
Hey there, I'm Tim Barnes. You are the genre, and in every episode of this show, I ask a great guest about the first genre that inspired them, the first craft that they pursued, and how they feel about that first pursuit now. Now, listen, look, listeners, I know there has been a gap between the episodes. I know that in the last episode, I said that this episode will be coming out the next week. I don't know how to explain what happened. I just turns out I needed a little bit of a break. I think this is the second unexpected break in this quote unquote season. And basically after these next few episodes, there will be a more proper break. We can call that the end of season 3, season 2 of You Are the Genre. Season 2 we can call an unofficial behind the scenes of Judge Travis season. There's a couple episodes that'll be coming out that have nothing to do with Judge Travis per se, but this has been a great journey. I love behind the scenes, I'm about to say it, content. I love everything that has to do with the behind the scenes. A lot of the things that I write are about that unique nuance of the behind the scenes of things. So I am so happy that you have all been joining me on this journey of talking to the people who helped create my scripted audio series, Judge Travis, which is available to listen to right now for free wherever you get podcasts. There will be some exciting news sort of related to that coming out soon, and I'm excited to share that with you. But this episode is a really good one. This episode is my conversation with Ben Kruse, who edited, sound designed, and mixed every single episode of Judge Travis. And if you aren't aware, Judge Travis is a show that I created, that I directed, that is about the behind the scenes of a TV court show and how it happens in the judge's personal life affects his verdicts. It's an amazing cast. You can get all the information that you want about it at judgetravis.com. And there's some names that tend to pop up in these behind the scenes episodes, like Elizabeth. When we say Elizabeth, we're talking about Elizabeth Bakewit, who was one of the producers, an executive producer on Judge Travis. And she really connected me with a lot of the important figures who helped make this show possible. She's a wonderful person to collaborate with, a great producer. And because of her, I collaborated with Ben, who I'm talking to in this episode. I collaborated with Kev Liu, who I talked to in a previous episode. He created all the original music. And when she sent me Ben's portfolio, I got really interested in the range of things that he's worked on. It's not all comedy related. Some of it was, audio documentary form. And that stood out to me because this show really works because you feel like you're eavesdropping on what's happening behind the scenes on the show. It scratches that itch in your brain where you're like, I can't believe I'm listening to this. By the time we got to post-production, I really came to enjoy my live Zoom editing sessions with Ben that kind of became a bit therapeutic. Let's just say that, on some level, the process of making the show, I have felt like every single character. I think I started off feeling more like Jax, hopeful, idealistic, and I ended up feeling a little bit more like Percy, the judge. But ultimately, I'm glad that it all resulted in a show where the characters feel real enough for me to say that I'm feeling a little bit like this one today, a little bit like that one tomorrow. And it would not be possible if it wasn't for these exact people. So I really think you'll enjoy this conversation with Ben Kruse, who is from the United States and Bolivia, currently lives in Chicago, and for the past 5 years has been working as a professional sound engineer, creating, mixing, and editing projects for cinema, TV, podcasts, and music. So let's get into it. This is my conversation with Ben Kruse. Where are you, by the way?
I'm in Wyoming right now, dude.
You got a bunk bed. There's multiple Pixar lamps behind you. What's going on? What are you?
I was supposed to be out here on vacation with my family, but I'm
Okay.
working a bunch, so we're just
Got it.
I'm out in the woods, but kind of like, still plugging away at the various projects that need to finalize this year. So
that's one of the things I realized as I was working with you on Judge Travis is that you're very busy in the audio world, which is a blessing because the audio world is very complex for a lot of people right now. But you're doing the hustle.
Oh, well, thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, we try to. It's been a good year, so I'm happy about that work wise. I'm not entirely sure if it's fruit of something that of a long process or if it's just coincidence, but I'm thankful that it's been a decent or like a pretty solid year work wise. So things have just been moving. So
Nice.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. What I know is that you do a wide variety of things. Is there anything outside of the audio world, by the way? I know that you make music, you produce various styles of podcasts, but is there something outside of that your attention gets called to?
Hobby wise or work wise?
I guess hobby wise, yeah.
Oh, there's a lot going on. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to do so many things. And there's just no time,
Yeah.
But as is life, I guess. I mean, I've been trying to stay a little healthy, so last couple months up until the winter, I was playing a bunch of soccer, which was great. And I was, trying to exercise as much as I could. Trying to get into speaking a bit more Portuguese, which has been on the radar for a while. Just because it's so similar to Spanish in various regards, and I've been able to pick up on it pretty quick.
Nice.
But I just need to practice some more with some folks that are willing to have conversations with me. And I slowly have been kind of forming a little community around that, and I'm trying to read more, man. I gotta read. I can't believe I've gotten through this amount of life and not read more. I need.
You got to do the gateway drug. I recently learned that physical magazines, are the perfect gateway drug back into books.
Oh, dude! I found a publication in Chicago. It's called The Pub, and they only do print. And it's like it's a newspaper that's released quarterly. And I got it, and I was like, wow, man, this is great. You pick it up and you read it, and then you put it down, and then you pick it up again, and then you read it some more, and you have.
And the fact that it's only in print is brilliant too, because there's that rarity too.
Oh, dude, yeah, I love it. I can't, I spend all my day in front of a screen, and I'm just like, I need paper, man. If I'm gonna read something, like I can't. I need print. Dude, I'm like, I need something that I can look at that's not so digital, because
and you can really zone out on it. I feel like too. That's the thing about paper compared to the screen is that I don't really get that feeling of zoning out on screens. I think maybe in my youth I did before there were so many tabs in my life, but on paper you can really, even if you start to daydream a little bit, there's something about just focusing on one piece of paper, and then the accomplishment of turning the page is different than scrolling.
Absolutely. And there's a tactile aspect to it, right? You're grabbing something, like you're flipping the page. The book smells a particular way, so that's kind of nice. Whereas on the screen, it's just it's just like, where is the page? The page just keeps in an infinite page, and then it's over, and that's, I don't know. I don't like that. But yeah, it's a nice variation to be able to read stuff in print. I very much enjoy that.
Nice. Well, I want to talk about Judge Travis a little bit before I dive into the meat of what this podcast is all about, because a bit of my professional work career is split between audio stuff and then TV stuff, in terms of, like, I used to be a podcast producer. I wouldn't say I was the best at it in the world, but one of my original goals in life was to be a producer on This American Life. And then that combined with like stand up and stuff. And then I started writing for TV, and I thought that, I was putting the audio world behind. And then this project kind of emerged after I pitched it and it got greenlit, and it sucked me back into the world of audio. And it was very, I feel like, beautiful and and insightful collaborating with you when it came to like the editing process of of Judge Travis. But I guess like I want to know for you, like, what did you think when this concept of a show first landed on your plate?
Well, I'd worked on a scripted podcast project before,
Oh,
so I had a general idea of. I think about it in terms of technicalities, like in regards to like technical aspects. Kind of from the start, I'm sort of balancing both, right? So I'm like thinking about um, the creative, and then I'm also thinking about how is this going to work on a technical basis,
yeah,
because you have so many audio files to sift through, and you have so much metadata that you need to sort of input so that you can put the assemblies together, or at least this is my process. So part of me when launching into a project like this, and part of me when I launched into Judge Travis was like, all right, how do we make this happen? And then once you start putting the assemblies together, you really start to get a sense of how, or you really start to get like a palpable sense of how everything is sounding and what the characters are and what kind of tendencies they have. And on the basis of that, you start feeling things,
yeah,
and then you start sort of getting more into the creative process, which is analyzing like certain timings and tightening up like aspects of dialogue, and then like actual like sound design. It's like what spaces are we kind of going to be living in, and what kind of
yeah,
effects, and like how are they going to be associated to particular characters. Uh, but yeah, I think off the bat, when I launch into something like this, I'm thinking, how are we going to make this happen? And then eventually I'd move into this creative way of thinking, where it's a balance of technicality and creativity, and emotion too, because you're laughing, especially for this show. I was laughing my ass off the whole time because I would hear, the all the all the takes and the improvisations by some of the actors,
yeah,
and very consistently, you just had a smile on your face, and that's a wonderful thing. That's a really great really great way to work, because it's not heavy. It's like, it's light, and it's comedic. So you kind of, you're working through things and you're laughing at the same time. I mean, in a sense, it's kind of like an ideal it's an ideal job, right? Like you working on comedy podcasts is just it's wonderful.
Well, I feel like what stood out to me about your resume when we dove into this, when Elizabeth sent me your work, was that you had done a lot of basically like documentary audio work.
Mm.
And I thought that that fit the aesthetic that I wanted to pull off with Judge Travis, where the goal really is to feel like you are eavesdropping on these behind the scenes conversations. It's just the goal is to sound like these are real things that are happening in hallways and offices and kitchens and and conference rooms behind the scenes of a court show. And I feel like this is my first time directing, by the way. So it was I feel like it was a great working relationship, but it was also interesting how there was a bit of a dance for us to understand each other's cadence, I feel like. And one of the really exciting things was being able to sit in on some editing sessions with you that almost became like therapy sessions, I feel like. Um,
Yeah, man.
but what do you think
For the
is
both of us.
yeah? What do you think is the secret sauce for pulling off that vibe? Because I think what might be interesting to people is the fact that only one or two occasions were any of the actors in the same room together. And my hope is that we really made people feel like all of these actors are in the same space. And that on my end, and I think on your end too, felt like sifting through like records at a vinyl shop to find like the right take for the right moment. And the puzzle piece element of it all, it's tedious, but it was also the most fun? Like what
Yeah.
what do you think were the keys to that vibe?
Oh my God. I mean, the main thing is y'all did a great job hiring people, right? Because it's like I can't do if the performances aren't there. Like I can put something together, but it's not going to sound great, you know. Uh, but if the performances are there, and they were, uh, all the main characters had an idea of their or all the actors had an idea of their main character of their character,
Yeah.
and they executed it in a way that was just so creative and so precise, given the to my mind precise. I guess that's a relative term, because we hadn't imagined the voices
Yeah.
up until they started recording them.
Yeah.
uh, but Bashir is Judge Travis to me. Like he, he's he's like he became that person, and his deliveries, everybody's deliveries for that
Mm.
matter, in regards to the characters, were always so, the inflections were so great. The emotionality being portrayed was just so specific. And then, of course, you add that layer or you add your layer into it, which is you're making the selects in the moment, and you have a vision for how you want things to sound. And so that combined, and then my technical abilities, in regards to like how we can make this happen, going back to the way that we were, or what we were talking about earlier, just how to organize all the files and make sure we can get through this like kind of quick. I think that that's the secret sauce. It's sort of like the combination of all these efforts together, but beginning with the performances of the people, because that's crucial.
Yeah.
You can't fake that, right? Like this, and that's, and like, but that in combination with your direction, right? So those two things I think are the most crucial. I feel like I come in, it's like a secondary part to just kind of help everything mold together.
Mm.
But to be able to get certain performances out of people, you also have to be doing the direction, right? And so I think the sauce is there. That's the
Yeah.
sauce.
And I feel like, that was the big shock for me. One of my first goals in life was to be a, filmmaker. And that's its own style of directing, but directing for audio in this way. And I think this is very similar to like animation, where it's such a jigsaw puzzle because you're recording everyone separately. And then you have your selects, and you're trying to imagine how, sometimes it's like weeks have gone by, how this will fit with the selects you made before or whatever, but you're directing with such a range just so that that you have the right materials when it comes to the editing booth, the editing sessions, where you feel confident you can mix and match in the right way.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it begins with you, right? So I think what's interesting is that it begins with you in regards to like what you selected.
yeah,
I might have a little bit of input later on, be like, maybe this one's like a little bit better. So I might make like some sort of alteration. Um, but at the end of the day, I'm just kind of following your orders. But then also, I guess there's a little sauce in the way that I work with pacing, right? And the way that I like kind of put the voices together. I think
yeah,
that if there's something in that first pass, right? Because we had versions 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. In the first one, sort of like getting the pacing down was really important. And I think in as far as like, maybe in as far as like my work, maybe that was also like an added extra layer of sauce. It's just like making it sound. Let's make it sound like they're together. In the room, and like give it a little reverbs, like they got like they're like in a small room, then they're in the courtroom, so the reverb's like a little bit larger, and but the conversations are kind of flowing the way that we want them to flow.
yeah. That one of the things I'm most proud of is that there are some extravagant sound effects, but for the most part, it's footsteps, doors opening, and people talking in the distance. And I think that it's little things that make a that make a big difference. It couldn't have been pulled off without you. I think that also, I think this is something that you might not have been used to, but my favorite thing was just like finding things that weren't necessarily intended to be in the recording. Like Langston as Jax would do, like Langston would do these little things like in between takes when I would when I would give him directions, and there was something about the that was like I felt like that fits this character, and so I never told him that that would end up in the show, but I feel like we ended up using those little guttural sounds that weren't even like specific takes that I asked them to do. It was just things that the actors the actors did, and I that's to me is what I feel is like is a part of that secret sauce of like things that no director in their right mind would ask an actor to do, but that humans do on a on a regular basis. That's
Yeah.
kind of the weird thing that I'm most excited about is in the show more than the jokes.
Yeah. I mean, that's where you get all the cool details and like the silly laughs and just the like little improvisations that like and the breaths, right? And breaths can be super helpful to like transition in the dialogue and yeah, we were able to find a lot of like gold like a lot of gold in the sort of intermixed in between all the deliveries.
I feel like there was a moment where we got what is essentially like Judge Travis's theme from Kev, where it felt like we knew that we were in the pocket for the show. It was crazy how important that one element was of this really melodic R&B kind of kind of song that kicks off all the episodes while the narrator is describing the lore of Judge Travis. What did that do for you? Like, I know that you were really into that song as well.
Oh yeah. No, I think Kev, the composer, he killed it. He had just I think it was the right the song was just the right vibe. And it really, yeah, it helped set the tone. It helped sort of give us a sense of continuity throughout the episodes as well. That isn't just dialogue based, but musically based. And also just like a pleasure to work with him, right? Because he was just so down to just like make modifications and do this, that, and the other. And so, yeah, it's amazing what he was able to come up with.
I'm curious to know what was the most complex episode in your mind as an editor.
Oh my God,
And,
the auto tune one, the episode 4. It's insane. It was like it was a music performance. Like there were so many elements to that to that whole thing, and there was a back and forth between Jackson and Judge and the judge too, where Raquel was that was the same episode.
Where Raquel's going like in between the offices. Yeah.
So that's like just a lot of cutting and going back and forth, and then there was I don't know, no spoilers, but there was a musical appearance at the end. And, yeah, that was the funnest one, but and also the most complicated one, but definitely the most satisfying one when it came out.
Nice. Yeah. Definitely going all out with like what's possible with audio. I feel like in that particular episode, let's have 3 songs. Let's have one character going back and forth between rooms. Yeah. And let's have half of the court case in auto tune.
Basically, that's fun. See, Kev took care of that, right? Like I sent him because I don't have the auto tune tool, honestly, because I don't use it that much, and so I was like, hey, can we? I sent it over his way, and he gave me a bounce down of the judge's voice in auto tune in the key that the other songs were going to be in, and so just worked. The collab worked perfectly,
Nice. Well, I want to dive into the heart of You Are the Genre, which is 3 basic questions. And the first one is, when you were young, Ben, what was the first, creative thing? What was the first genre that called out to you as a kid?
Oh my God, dude. I've been thinking about this question since you asked it. And I was like trying to figure out how to answer this question. I guess, let me think here. What genre? Okay, so there's a bunch. I'm very I grew up musically inclined. So there's a lot of genres that, because of the circumstance and like the where I was living at the time, things were, more palpable, more tangible. So there were a lot of musical genres in my environment that really affected the way that I felt, and that set up sort of like the groundwork for certain potential creative evolutions in the future. So definitely Argentinian rock, because at the time when I was younger, I was living in Bolivia, in Cochabamba, and then subsequently in La Paz, and they, we listened. We were listening to a bunch of Argentinian rock. My parents in Cochabamba were always throwing parties, dance parties, and in these dance parties there was, you know, always a wide variety of music, but some of the bands and some of the singers I still remember to this day, and I associate them with this sort of this happy, festive environment, like Juan Luis Guerra, for example, who's a Dominican singer that sings, bachata songs, salsa songs, merengue. Carlos Vives too, the Argentinian rock influence as well, Fito Páez, and then when I was super, super young, also in that context, Bob Marley used to be huge for me.
Oh.
Used to be huge for me. I remember having, we kind of cheated on this one, but we had Legends, which is the compilation, right? The compilation of the, so we weren't album based, although we did have, what was it? Coming in from the Cold was on an album. Uprising, I think it was. Yeah, the Bob Marley album. I think it was Uprising, and Coming in from the Cold was out. So we had that album, and then we had Legend. And I was when I was a young guy, like I was 3, 4, 5 years old. I mean, I was they'd take me out, walking in the streets, and I would be singing Buffalo Soldier, and so it's like huge.
Well, what do you think it was about it though? Like just the groove of it all, or the message?
Yeah. The groove, his voice, the harmonic progressions, very simple, but just so. If there's any way to describe it, just so much sauce in the way that music comes together. Reggae in general, but those specific songs by Bob Marley on that Legend album.
I feel like that explains your generally chill vibe.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, there's maybe a little bit of that in there, but definitely like a huge, his voice was incredible. His voice is the instrumentation, and then the rhythmic elements in there, the sort of driving force behind reggae. I think it just makes it super appealing to.
Was there any clash with that? Like you're saying, your parents were into rock, which is, I think, a little different than reggae, unless.
Well, no, so they had that influence. They presented me with all these things, right?
Okay, yeah.
The CDs were from their collection, so we would, I would listen to that, and it's through them kind of that I understand, or that I had these sort of like musical influences, because they were playing all this music,
What was it inspiring inside of you?
Oh. I think emotionally it was just doing a lot for me. And I felt good singing. I felt good like dancing to it. I felt various things. I had good associations with all the music too, because, but like I said, these parties, right? And these moments of joy that I was able to perceive as a young person, and then kind of internalize.
Yeah.
And
what is it about parties at that age? Because I have something similar where my family for a long time would have a big Christmas Eve party. Like everyone would pitch in to make a big pot of gumbo, and there'd be music and dancing. I was never dancing, but I always remember the joy of just like feeling that all around. And I also associate that with like, there's an era of music where it's like there's like a couple like Marvin Gaye songs. What's that big hit party song? I can't remember the name off the top of my head. No More Standing outside the wall on the wall or whatever. But like where you can hear a party happening while the song is playing on the record. Like the record would start with like the sound of a party. Was it for you just like pure joy that at some point folds into like a nostalgia for the past?
I think what you're mentioning right now, I can very much relate to, because it harps on this sort of like essential element of what it means to just be us, which is we want community, right? And like my core memories, so in regards to my family, in Bolivia, more specifically, are these gatherings, of like people getting together, whether it be like Sunday lunches or these, parties that I was mentioning, all these things, and the sort of distinct elements of the dynamic of what exists within these gatherings, the laughter, the
Yeah.
loudness, the
Almost a
music.
mystery. There's like a mystery inside of the noise. In my head, it's like
Sure.
I'm sure there's people dancing and there's music, but there's so much more going on that I probably wasn't aware of as a kid.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. I didn't even thought about that. Yeah, because everybody's kind of just going through their thing, and then they show up, and then there's a it's a moment of like compressed joy, right? Because it doesn't encapsulate life in its whole, but it is a facet of what humans tend to do, which is
Yeah.
get together and have fun, and not just have fun, but um be joyful in community, right?
Yeah.
And be in community. Um, so yeah, there's definitely it's definitely like it's a multifaceted encounter, because yeah, everybody's going through everything that they're going through, but
Hmm.
then they have this element of their existence as well, proclaiming itself in the energy of being in community, and that can go in various ways. It can be super joyful. People can get into fights. People get too drunk. So it's like, and I saw all of that too. Like there was that as well.
Yeah.
Um, but I think I think that aspect of community is just so important to everything.
With that in mind, what would you say is the first official craft that you pursued? And is there any connective tissue between that first genre that called out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that so the first craft I started sort of pursuing was guitar, but playing classical guitar, uh, and it was, for a while I was taking classes and these sorts of things, and then I left it, later on in life, and then now, interestingly enough, I'm coming back to this sort of to just playing and singing and sort of working. My skills as like a troubadour, if you will, like you just like kind of playing certain certain songs and you're singing them, and then that's that, all on like a nylon string guitar. um and most definitely I mean, and also another facet of these gatherings was like what they call in Spanish la guitarreada, which is the guitar session, right? So you kind of pass around the guitar,
Right.
everybody sings along to certain songs, and it's a musical encounter amongst fellow peeps, and they, everybody has their turn singing, or everybody has their turn playing, or there's somebody that plays better than everybody else, so they're playing the guitar and singing. Everybody's like kind of singing along with them. So that left a huge imprint in my mind, and my family was always very much like, uh, of that ilk in regards to creating these musical spaces, because they like to, and they wanted to. And there's some musicians in the family too, so we were kind of, I kind of I kind of grew up with that, and in that sense, like, yeah, another big genre that ended up sort of molding me in a way was, this the troubadour style of like Latin American music, and uh, musical artists such as like Silvio Rodriguez, Mercedes Sosa, um, Pablo Milanés, like, both those guys are Cuban. Mercedes Sosa Argentinian. Um, that style and they're very different styles also, but it's singer songwriter with the guitar. Mercedes Sosa only sings, but she had her backups and her musicians. And, they were playing different styles of Argentinian music, which also run parallel with like styles of music in folkloric, folkloric Bolivian music as well. So yeah, all these things kind of coming together, with regards to our musical tendencies, definitely had like a huge impact. And now they're having a more even bigger impact in what I'm doing, because I'm practicing more and I'm playing more, I'm just like, I want to keep singing, I want to keep playing the guitar, and that's sort of, it started in a certain place and a certain iteration. It kind of got left behind a little bit, and now it's having
Yeah.
like this sort of like resurgence with the way that I'm doing things.
There's something that I feel like, what I'm getting from what you're describing is so much of Spanish history is so chaotic, and I connect with that in terms of African American history, where it's so chaotic, where there's a certain point where the only thing that makes sense is the music. Is because the music is like, it's so connected and it's non-verbal, like the instrumental music. It's like, there's so much history in there that can't totally be documented. Do you feel like there's something universal that you find, and there's something that feels like tapped into truth?
Sure. Yeah, no, definitely. I think that, well, I mean, I don't want to sound too cliche, but there is a universality to music. And there's a way by which music becomes this sort of entity wherein you can gather people, right? I mean, music becomes like sort of like a gathering mechanism of people, and that brings about a universality just in the context of a gathering. We and in the context, bringing it back to the family in those parties, like in the context of those gatherings, like the centerpiece was the music, right? The music was kind of bringing everybody together,
Mm.
to feel festive. And so, and as far as like ways in which we can understand happiness and ways in which we can understand joy, I've always thought about music as a sort of foundational piece to that equation. Uh, just because it, in my experience and in those contexts, it ended up being the centerpiece of like where people found their joy. So most definitely there's a perhaps an undercurrent of understanding that we don't fully understand, right? That we share with other people despite our differences.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like, I was never the type of person who was capable of speaking in tongues at churches that that asked you to speak in tongues. But I do actually think there's something profound and beautiful about that in a way. I'm just personally a little afraid of entering that state of my mind. But I do think that there's something about music where it's interesting. Like, even if you're at like, you're at a concert where there's a musician who's famous for a particular style, and then let's say it's like classical music, but then at one point they decide to do something where it's the classical song, but they decide to do it in a bluesy way, and you get a certain reaction from a pocket of the crowd, and it's just like amazing that that little thing, that little switch, can say so much to certain people who like really align with just like a style of music. Like, it's the same song, but you hit a few more blue notes or something, or you do it with a little bit more of a flamenco style, and suddenly and suddenly, like, there's something, there's like what it's like tied into history in this strange way.
Yeah, but that's what like that's what music is. It's like a culmination of styles converging over the course of time, right? Like these, like you take salsa or cumbia, for example, and that's, if you look at the instrumentation, you can break it down. It's like, oh, this is from Africa, this is from Latin America, this is from Europe, right? And so you have this huge amalgamation of, or this very potent amalgamation of everything that's sort of like coming together, and all that means in regards to like colonialism and in regards to social dynamics and in regards just to musicality and like the history of music, right? It's just like all kind of encompassed. And I think that's also, we maybe don't think about it that much, but I think also music is transmitting that. It's like it's transmitting this joint evolution of sound over time in various social contexts, like
Yeah.
all coming together all at once through a particular sound, through particular instrumentations.
I do think that there's something about this Judge Travis project that, even with, scenes that didn't feel musical, that I feel like conversationally there's something musical about the pacing, and I think
Oh
that that's
yeah.
something that was like
Oh
it felt
yeah.
like we were in a band at one point in the editing process because I would have you just like play a scene. I feel like you were getting a little annoyed, like he's really going to listen to this 2-minute scene, but I was just
Yeah.
like waiting for like something to just like the slightest switch to make it feel more real to me, to
Oh
make it hit
yeah.
that blue note. Yeah,
Well, that's the thing is like dialogue also has its rhythm, right? Dialogue is punctuated by things, especially in like a sound. If you're creating a sound world, you think of the dialogue as like the meat of the sentence, and then something has to come either before or after and in between. And it's like, and then we make the decisions and as far as like what that is, and so there's most definitely a rhythm in regards to all that is said and all that we put together with the different voices. And all those rhythms they have a beginning and an end.
yeah,
Most sounds are like that. Sounds stupid, but all the all sounds have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you got to figure out like how to work that,
yeah,
in the within the context that I feel like, well, then within the context that you're in,
yeah. And there's an alchemy that I think that what's the best way to say this? I think a lot of people know, the standard rules of comedy, like the rule of three. And when you're writing a joke, you are writing for rhythm and you're constructing things leading up to a surprise. I'm typically that type of comedy. When I would do stand up, I'm the type of stand up that when I'm on stage, I know that the general thought is like, that guy's a good writer. It's not necessarily he's the funniest person in the world, but he knows how to construct stuff. But the kinds of comedians that I'm most in awe of are the ones who kind of go beyond translatable words. And it gets to a point where it's just pure tone and just inflection on a level where I'm not even listening to the words. There are certain comedians where I am just laughing at the rhythm. And I think that that is like a truly magical thing. And I think
That's
that that's
interesting.
kind of what I was aspiring to on some level with this show where the rhythm has to like have, its surprises and things and have this bounciness where almost the words at a certain point don't really matter. It's almost like you're a kid and you're just entertained, like a baby entertained by, the adults around them making, saying things that they have no idea what's going on, but there's something enjoyable about it.
Yeah. No, I agree, and that's kind of opening my mind right now because I don't think I listen to comedians the same way, uh, or maybe I do. I think I'm about no, I am about tone.
Mm,
I think certain tones and inflections really get me laughing. Um, I'm about content as well, and as far as like what people are saying, because there's aspects to like comedic delivery that um, can be relatable in my experience, and that makes me and that has the. To make me laugh.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's an interesting question. I got to think about that some more.
Well, I'm gonna dive more into your yeah. You said you were studying classical guitar. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, when I was younger, yeah, I was doing that. But yeah, no, that was kind of like a short period of time when I was younger, but I think it definitely influenced me in regards to like the way I finger pick the guitar and like and the way like I like to play these days,
Yeah.
and the sort of I think the touch that I developed then is like the touch that I have now, which is good because I like playing in that way.
Were you taking it seriously to the degree that the goal at the time was to become a professional and make money doing this?
No, 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 no. I wasn't serious. I would say that I wasn't really serious about it at all because in various regards I didn't know what I wanted. And so I was like, it actually felt, in the moment it felt kind of onerous, like studying and like, practicing and all these things. Like it didn't feel good. I didn't want to do it. But it's interesting now is like now I want to practice because I have songs that I want to play.
Yeah.
And there's things that I want to sing and there's things that I want to like, perform or whatever. So, that I think the want is important and kind of like crucial fixture in the way that you decide to exercise like creatively, you know?
Yeah. How do you ultimately describe what you do now?
I am I'm just a sound person in general.
Uh-huh.
Uh, career wise, this is like a heavy, you know, career and work wise, there's a really heavy sort of focus on post production at various iterations. So whether it be through film, podcasts, and sometimes music, um, and yeah, it's just the sort of the music kind of and the guitar kind of figures into that a little bit. Um, so yeah, I'm a artistic sort of creative person in that field and in that context, and I guess I consider myself as well work wise as an audio editor first and foremost, as I'm editing a lot of audio all the time. But then I
Which is
also
very
make.
tedious work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tedious. It can be boring. It can be fun. It could be.
I think it's
It's
more
definitely very
complex,
repetitive. Hmm?
very repetitive and more complex than being a video editor, I feel like, because I don't know if you are able to, but it's really hard to multitask with audio.
Oh yeah, you can't really. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes I'll throw something on TV so I can get a glimpse. You know, it's like, but there's nothing playing. You know,
Yeah.
there's like soccer highlights. You know, or sorry, football highlights.
Yeah.
I mean football, like the OG. No, maybe some people have an issue with that, but like you know, I have various football teams in
Oh, yeah.
various countries that I'm from. So like I'll put something on the TV and I'll maybe glance over it, but I can't. Yeah, you can't have the sounds. You can't have the commentary because then that affects the way that you're working in audio. You know.
Yeah. Well, what was the path from classical guitar to being a sound editor?
Just well,
How many different pursuits are in between are in between those?
not many actually. So yeah, that translated to music. Music's what I went to school for. I was doing music, and then after college, I started getting into post production, and then that was the sort of yeah. And I sort of started finding my way kind of as a freelancer, as a sound designer. Um, so yeah, I think one kind of led to the next, but with always this like heavy influence of like understanding that like I wanted to work on films, you know, I really wanted to like sound design films, and um, I've always been moved. I've always been moved by music in films too. I've noticed that, and I was thinking when I was thinking about the questions that you were asking, I noticed that like sometimes music in film hits harder than music outside of the context of film. Um,
Yeah.
and that was always very attractive to me. Um, and it always like incited me to, or it was an inciter to like get into that world. Obviously, like I ended up being like a composer for film. Yeah, I mean, you think about certain tracks that like have that you put them in the context of the film, and they're maybe even better. You know?
You're talking about just like songs that weren't songs that would initially play on the radio that end up in a movie, that kind of thing, or
Yeah,
original
yeah, yeah,
scores?
yeah. Well, both
Okay, okay.
for real,
Yeah,
both. But like, I mean, think of like, and I was racking my brain for like examples of this.
yeah.
But think about "Wake Up" by Rage Against the Machine
Yeah,
by
yeah.
itself.
At the end of The Matrix. Yeah.
At the end of the Matrix, man. Oh my God. He's just walking out of that phone booth and he's just like looking so
Yeah, yeah.
cool. And then he's just like flying into the air, and
Yeah.
it's just timed perfectly. So there's
Mhm.
image associated with like what you hear, right?
Yeah.
I think another one that came up for me was Give Me Shelter in The Departed
Oh,
by
yeah.
the Rolling Stones. That had like that flow with like archival images and these sorts of things that was just like it was really powerful for me. Early Blue by F.J. McMahon in Reservation Dogs. I don't know if you're able
Oh,
to
yeah.
see that, but that episode of Reservation Dogs is just so amazing, where he meets the man that kind of lost himself in his mind
Yeah.
and was waiting for the eventual arrival of the supernatural out of world entities. No, I'm not gonna call them aliens, but just like the beings from outside the world to like arrive, right? And he has these like he has these eggplant farms, and I think when the kids like he's getting all these eggplants. They play "Early Blue" by F.J. McMahon. It's just so fitting too, because the lyrics of that song are so particular to the situation, and it's like so perfectly selected for that moment, and it just hits on a different level because you're feeling all these things because these guys are just like living in solitude, and he's waiting for the aliens to come down, and he's like wondering about his friends, who his friends are, and it's like, and then when you get the context of the rest of the show, the rest of that season, you start to understand why they chose that song. And so like music selection for films also it's had a very potent subconscious impact on why I'm in this world too. I feel like
the magic of those moments in movies, I feel like a part of why they work so well is that we just so happen to hear so many songs throughout the day. I mean, at least we used to. I feel like I listen to less music now that everything is apps. But in the in the radio world, there's so many songs on your way to school or whatever, while you're being dropped off, or when you go into a store. And I feel like when you pick the right song in a movie, it adds that specificity, but it also makes it feel like those everyday moments in your life matter as well. Like,
sure.
it's it adds like gives a new context to it. And then I'm thinking about like there's certain songs where like I hear and with that I don't associate with a movie or a TV show or anything, but I start seeing like a montage of things that feel life affirming. Like there's that song "The Waters of March" that I think is just like the greatest song in the world. Like I want to cry every time I hear every version of that song, because it's so magical, and I can't wait to put it in some perfect montage someday. But you were studying music, and you feel like something about the experience of watching certain TV shows and going to the movies and hearing that perfect song
Oh my God.
kept
Yes.
you
Well, it's also so you're feeling all these things because you're watching the film and you're being emotionally impacted by the film, and then the song comes in and you're just like, and it's just like emotional override, So all the things start to surface, and then you have that association with that particular song. And I have more examples. I can't think of that many more, but it's just such a thing. And then also like like manage different songs into each other too within, because that's what you can do with when you're making films. You can choose different elements of different songs and then kind of mix them together. Actually, one that I did think of recently was, and this was also a big staple in our household when I was growing up, was Calle 54, which was a documentary made by a Spanish man. I forget the director's name, but it documented parts of the lives of some of the biggest Latino musicians at the time, which I think was in the late 90s, early 2000s. And it also had a performance by them. So that was like sort of like the organization of the film. It's like, we're going to spend a little bit of time with the artists, kind of verite. He's going to do a little narration, and then we're going to jump into one of their performances live with like their jazz band or whatever. So it was like a lot, Latin musicians. And there's this one performance by this pianist called Michel Camilo, which is just, it's incredible, man. It's the most incredible performance you're gonna see. I highly recommend it. The name of the song is From Within, but if you put in YouTube Calle 54 Michel Camilo, it's gonna come up for you, and it's just it's so beautiful. But to exemplify what I was saying in regards to the sort of mixture, and the sort of multifaceted aspect of his like musical career. He's a composer, but he's also like one of the most amazing pianists you'll ever see. And within the film, they're mixing this like classical composition that that I believe he composed. There's this beautiful sort of string section that then just goes into this song from within that is like, it's just him ripping with the salsa band, or there's like ripping with there's various combinations of like different genres in that track, but it's just like it's Latin rhythms, and it's unbelievable. So yeah, there's the mixture of you can mix things in films and go and sort of change the different emotionalities that you're portraying.
I'm trying to think about what the vibe was as we were working together on Judge Travis, and there's something I always think about. There's a unique bond between drummers and bass players that I always notice in rock bands, I guess, in particular, or I guess, funk bands too, where at some point there's just a knowing nod being exchanged between the drummer. It's always between the drummer and the bass player. And I feel like there are certain points in the editing process where you were kind of like waiting to see a specific nod. Like you were very good at being attuned and reactionary in the right way to my vibes as we were going through some of these episodes. I feel like where it was like you knew what a certain nod you were looking for certain reactions from me, and it was fun to see, because I'm usually the one, if I write something or whatever, like I show it to my significant other and I'm like, wait, what did you laugh at? I'm waiting to see like, and seeing how much hard work you put into these moments. It was exciting. It was fun to be on the other end of that, where it's like, oh, you want to see what my reaction is to this thing you put all this hard work into. And one of the craziest things, which I think you directed far more than me in the show, is we got an actual like large group of people to be to be audience members for the court cases.
Yeah.
That was like a full day that I don't think any of us were in person with this group of people, but I was pretty burnt out at that point, and you really took charge in getting all of these various reactions specific to each episode from a large group of people.
Yeah.
Not only that, but I think you found your own Wilhelm scream for Judge Travis, which is just one of the actors going, "God damn!" Or what is it?
Yeah. There's a guy. He was just saying "God damn" a bunch, and it was really funny. I had him do it like a couple times, and that's kind of like peppered in like all throughout the. It's subtle. It's super subtle. And I think in the final mix is sometimes hard to make out, but yeah, it's just like that's what I'm saying with like in regards to punctuation, like maybe the judge will say something funny, and then the guy's just like, "God damn." You know what I mean? Like that's kind of cool. Like it could work depending on the situation. So yeah, that whole process was fun. Loop group sessions are fun because just a bunch of people being kind of goofy, and doing some some wild stuff.
Yeah. Well, I haven't gotten to the last question. We'll go through this really quickly, but how do you feel about that first pursuit now of classic guitar when you look back on it? I know that you're focusing on it quite a bit, but is there a hint of regret that you didn't put more focus on it originally, or how do you feel about that?
No, I think everything happens in the way that it happens, and I think maybe we have a tendency. I have the same tendency wherein I think about all the things that like perhaps are lacking in my life, and I would associate them, with a past sort of, or with maybe a warped understanding of the past, where it's like, oh, you should have practiced more, you should have done this, you should have done the other. But I think maybe part of life is figuring out that process for yourself and the way that you. And also like creative processes are so difficult. Like they're just, there's no right way to do anything. And like, because, nobody, well, a lot of people know what they want, but I think for people that are exploring, it can be hard to understand what to do in the time that you have. So from a creative standpoint, I don't really regret, like not practicing some more. Maybe a little bit. I do regret it, just because, like, you think about, oh, you could have been better earlier, right? And that's fine. But also, I feel like it can be a piece with just like the way that things are right now, because that also kind of not being good at it kind of took the took that sort of pressure of monetization out of music, right? Like, they didn't have to. I don't have to play to make a living. I just play for fun. I'll make my living, doing something else. Now, there's value to that as well.
Yeah.
And that's part of my process. So, that's good.
Yeah.
That's all right. It's all right.
Yeah.
Could
as
be
long
better.
as you're the guy at the party who brings out the guitar and people are actually excited about it. That's the only goal.
Yeah, right. You don't want those others just like kind of cringing in the background, just like kind of slowly escaping. It's like putting their heads down, like, God damn it, he's at it again. Yeah, I agree.
It also seems like in a number of ways you've achieved a lot of things that you want in terms of the audio sphere, right? I don't know if you've worked on a film per se, but it seems like you're on the right path.
Yeah. Again, I don't know. How for a long time I wasn't so goal oriented, and so, like, it's hard to say, what it all means, but I think that I'm in a space right now, definitely, where I'm doing things that are meaningful to me, and that I to some degree or other enjoy working on. And I think, as a foundational goal, most people have that, right? And or I have that. I want to work on things that are that have some sort of significance in a broader sense, but also have a significance for me. It's very hard for me sometimes to get into things that I don't like to do, especially if I need to be creative in that context.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely am in some capacity. I'm in that ballpark, and also just super thankful, because this all culminates in, like, in various ways, and you work at the things that you work at, and you gain the things that you gain in that process, and that's all wonderful, and should be filled with gratitude, because there's always people that are helping you get there, right? And there's always opportunities that created through other folks, and so, yeah.
Last thing is, I feel like there's the accidentally wonderful thing about collaborating with you and what this show ended up being is that it's a very Chicago show. Bashir is from Chicago. Brandy, who plays the bailiff, is from Chicago. Langston, who plays Jax, is from Chicago.
Oh, wow.
Two of the writers are, I know from the Chicago comedy scene when I was out there. Brian, who is the voice of the court show announcer, is from Chicago, and Chicago has a place that's very near and dear to my heart. Are you still in Chicago?
I am.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
I am. Funny enough, my dad's from Urbana, which is like 2 hours south, which is cool. There's not much going on over there, but so Chicago kind of feels like home to me, because I also used to visit my aunt a bunch when I was younger up there. And it's a wonderful town, and it's a wonderful place to be. Different from what I'm used to, or from where I consider myself that I'm from. So I'm from, these two cities in Latin America, and then I lived a long time in New York. So it's very different in that regard, because it's way more spread out, way more card dependent, than the other cities that I've been in. But within that sort of spread, there's a lot going on. There's really a lot going on from a musical perspective, from a comedic perspective, from like a film perspective, from a radio perspective. And I sing my praises to the city, because it's like in various regards, it's a wonderful place to be. I always described it as a my grandmother described it as a pancake, because Illinois is so flat. There's no mountains ever. That's my one beef. Because I'm from the mountains, and like I'm just like I need like
yeah.
I need different levels here, like it's like I wish besides the hill on Horner Park there was something, like a little bit more like more mountainous, but there's not, and that's fine. But she used to say as flat as a pancake, and I kind of took that metaphor, and I always imagined the pancakes have like these like little crevices where like the maple syrup gets like trapped,
yeah,
because they bubble up, the pancakes, they bubble up and then they kind of die down, and then there's this like these little like these like little crevices, kind of like on the moon, you have these like like the little these like little like valleys, if you will, and then like the maple syrup just kind of gets caught in there, and it's like these like little pockets of sweetness. And I think like Chicago has like a bunch of little pockets of sweetnesses, just like very separate from each other and very far from each other, but they're there, and you gotta find them, and it takes a little bit to find them, but when you find them, it's great.
And the Wachowskis, who created The Matrix, also from Chicago. And one of my favorite moments, I worked at an Einstein's Bagels in Chicago.
Oh, nice.
And I sold one of the Wachowskis a bagel there. It was
nice. Congratulations.
A moment for me. I know.
Yeah, that must have been amazing.
It was. Yeah. So, there's that.
Yeah. I didn't know this about you. You never told me this.
I know. Yeah. I had a long, strange work history in Chicago, but Einstein's Bagels was changed me.
Yeah, they got those all over the state too. Now that I think about it, and they have some in Champaign, in Urbana. They got Einstein Bagels down there. Shout out to Einstein Bagels.
Well, all right. I'll stop. Anything else you want to talk about? Any?
No, man. I really appreciate the time. This was great. It was an awesome conversation. So I appreciate chatting with you. It's been a minute, and I'm excited to get back on the work train and sort of finalize this project up.
And that's the show. Big thanks to Ben Kruse for joining me. For more information about him, visit benkaudio.com. Freddie Nunez created and sings the You Are the Genre theme song, and Adam Smith produced it. Next week, I promise you, you'll hear my conversation with the one and only Keisha Sharp, who voices Shirley Travis in the audio series Judge Travis. This is Tim Barnes signing off with your weekly reminder that you, yes you, are the genre.